Commissioner Zuber, would you call the roll, please?
Certainly. Commissioner Acharya is not here. Commissioner Okan?
Here.
Commissioner Engel?
Here.
Commissioner Perkins?
Here.
I'm skipping around. I don't know what I did here. Commissioner Eggenberger?
Here.
Commissioner Zuber here, and Chairman Green.
I am here. Thank you very
And
much.
We are also missing Commissioner Graham Hudak, who is no longer going to be on the Planning Commission.
Exactly, exactly. And of course, we have our community planner, Mr. Patrick Sloan. And we have you all here. Good evening again. And of course, we have people that will be watching when this is all taped. Tonight we have four items on the agenda to discuss. But before we get to that, let's talk about our last meeting, which was October 5th. We do have minutes from that meeting. Do I hear a motion to accept those minutes?
So moved. Support.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Okan and support by Commissioner Engel to approve those minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Agenda items. Is anything to add to the agenda tonight from staff?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Anything from the commission? Hearing none, seeing none, do I hear a motion to approve tonight's agenda? of
So
four
moved.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Okan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving right along. Our first agenda item of the evening is the Havens Orthodontics, where we're considering a minor planned development district. This property is located east of Canton Center Road and south of Joy. Patrick, could you give us more detail?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant proposes to construct a mixed-use building for office and commercial uses at the southeast corner of Joy and Canton Center Road. The site currently contains a former UAW assembly and office building, which is proposed to be demolished. The site is about 2 acres and currently zoned O1 office. The plan development application proposes uses that are permitted in the O1 and the C1 village shopping districts, as well as private membership organizations and product sales, repair, and instruction. Each planned development district is required to demonstrate definite benefits to the community. The project sponsor proposes the following benefits: improvements to traffic by moving the site access points further from the intersection of Joy Road and Canton Center Road, restriping Joy Road east of Canton Center Road to increase the left turn stacking, limiting left turn movements to and from the site on Canton Center Road during peak school hours, construction of amenity seating adjacent to the public sidewalk at the intersection of Joy and Canton Center, and maintaining over 25% of the site as open space. Moving ahead to the second page of our report, in the schedule of modifications, the plan development application proposes the following 5 modifications from the zoning ordinance. First, the minimum front yard setback, 30 feet is proposed, 35 feet is required in the O1 district. The second item is that the maximum building height is 30 feet in the O1 district. A height of 35 feet is proposed. The third item is that the zoning ordinance allows for a maximum 2-foot projection into the front yard setback by a canopy, and the application proposes a 3.5-foot projection. The fourth item is for the minimum number of parking spaces. The site plan on the PD application proposes 102 parking spaces, and there are 106 parking spaces required, so we're just 4 off on that one. And the fifth item where there's a modification requested is the foundation landscaping. There's no foundation landscaping proposed on the east side of the building, and there's a 10-foot minimum foundation landscaping required. The application makes up for the additional foundation landscaping on the north and west sides of the building, however. With the architecture and layout, the rendering submitted, which we'll show here in a few moments, shows stone masonry units and brick as the predominant facade material, with several window areas. The material percentages would be confirmed at the time of site plan review. Regarding the traffic impact, the applicant has prepared a traffic impact assessment which makes the following recommendations, which the applicant has agreed to in the PD agreement. The first recommendation is to restrict ingress and egress left turns at the proposed driveway on Canton Center Road during the school peak periods with signage. And the second recommendation is to restripe the existing center left turn lane on Joy Road and extend it to the east of the project site as illustrated in the impact assessment and subject to Wayne County approval. The proposal includes upgrades to pedestrian access, which includes plans to propose a crosswalk across Joy Road from the site to the north side of Joy Road. And finally, with respect to landscaping and natural features, although there is a modification requested for the foundation landscaping on the east side of the building, the other sides of the building include additional foundation landscaping so that the total required foundation landscape area and plantings are provided. Finally, the landscape plan and PD agreement propose compliance with the tree removal and replacement standards of the zoning ordinance. Based on the above criteria and the findings in our report, our recommendation is approval of the minor plan development district, subject to any requirements of site plan review. And that concludes our report, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Do we have any project sponsors with us today? Okay, in the effort to do social distancing, because there are public hearings, we do expect there to be some comments from the audience, but we're going to have the project sponsors use this microphone and the audience to use this microphone, if you would, with that. And with that, do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
All right, got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Okon and support by Commissioner Engel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it is hereby opened. And do we have a project sponsor here that would like to add anything? Step right up to the mic. Good evening, and welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having us. My name is Aaron Havens. I am the owner of Havens Orthodontics. I've been practicing in Canton since 2013. I bought the practice, which was originally started in 1992. So we've been a foundation of the orthodontic community in Canton for a long time. Over the years, I've acquired the properties, the two parcels that we're talking about, and wanted to develop a kind of a cornerstone as a gateway to Canton Township. Not only for the permanent home of our office, but also to facilitate a void in the community, in the areas across from the high schools, across from our clients, across from kind of the entry from Plymouth to Canton. So I wasn't looking for kind of a strip mall development. I was looking for the look, touch, feel of our own offices, of our own quality that we have in our offices to make sure that it's resembled into the buildings, and starts with the team that we've developed that kind of hand selected throughout the time, starting with Atwell, and then Adam, who was the site architect who had a death in the family that couldn't be here. But we wanted to develop something special that could transcend generations in Canton and really support the community, just as like our practice has for over the years. So I really thank you for having us here and allowing the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I guess with that, we'd like to continue with our PowerPoint presentation here. Patrick did a great job of explaining the basics of the development here, so we're going to kind of skip through this a little bit quickly here.
Okay.
This slide here exhibits the proximity of the development property within the township. If anybody's not familiar, it is adjacent to the high school complex on the west side of Canton Center Road there, just south of the township boundary. This is a blow-up of the existing aerial for the site. It's the old UAW hall here. Our site contains both the developed portion of this property and the open field area both to the south and to the east of the existing building. The next couple slides here are just a couple quick street views if anybody's not familiar with the area here. View of the site, the existing site from the intersection, and the following slides are from Canton Center Road and from Joy Road. So just a quick example of exactly what the site looks like in its current state. Moving on from there, this is our proposed site plan for the development. We want to redevelop the property here to remove the underutilized, unattractive building that currently sits there and make this a more functional, pleasant view and entry into the township from the north through Plymouth Township here. Patrick's already gone over the definite benefits for the project site here, so I won't really touch on those again, as well as the schedule modifications to the zoning requirements. The project utilities we're going to service via sanitary sewer from the existing township sewer located on the adjacent school property. We've already obtained the easements from the adjacent property. As you can see, the sanitary sewer goes off down to the southeast of the property there. The development of this sanitary sewer extension will also provide for the future development of the parcel to our south to connect into that existing sanitary, or what will be the existing sanitary sewer at that time. So blow up of our landscape plan around the building here. Patrick already explained that we are redistributing the foundation landscape from the east side of the building to the north, south, and west sides due to some requirements and back and forth that we've had with the fire marshal. The reason why we can't provide the foundation landscape on the east side of the building is because due to the specific height criteria of the building, the fire department requires that the aerial access drive be located within 30 feet from the building, and the placement of the parking stalls and the frontage sidewalk along the building, if we were to insert the landscape buffer that's required by the township, pushes that access drive beyond the limits of the fire department requirements. And so through back and forth discussion with planning and fire, it was determined that this was the best function of the site to meet all of the requirements and redistribute the landscape to the other sides of the building. And with that, John, I'll turn it over to you to go through some of the architecture.
Good evening. My name is John Ackerman with Atwell as well. As Aaron mentioned earlier, Adam, the project architect, had an unfortunate death in the family, so I am stepping in to be a surrogate architect this evening. As you can see, we're going to show you a lot of renderings, perspective sketches that shows the quality of the building that's coming in here. As you can tell, Aaron is not cutting any corners. This is going to be a high-end, high-quality building. The view that you're seeing right now is actually the view from the intersection looking southeast into the development property. And one of those things I wanted to focus on this slide is the landscape, the common kind of landscape element you have on the hard corner. There's going to be pedestrian seating out there, and one of the other things is we are going to provide space for the township, for local artists, if anyone wants to engage in contracting to put up a sculpture, there will be space available in this seating area for that. Provides a nice gateway coming into the community, and I think it'll be a nice entry point, focal point for the development as a whole. Go to the next slide. Now you're looking further south, kind of looking up to the northeast of the development. One of the things you can see on this is, with two stories here, first story, and we have floor plans, I'll kind of walk you through that. But one of the things that kind of stands out here is the angles and the undulations of the different floors to provide opportunities for outdoor seating for the actual office space upstairs. Go to the next slide. So now we're in the parking lot itself looking northwest. Kind of one of the focal things here we want to show you is, the attention that's been spent on the screening of some of the back of house, if you will, on the south side of the building. That's where your dumpster pads are, your emergency fire escapes. All of it's enclosed, all of it looks like it's part of the actual structure. There's been a lot of attention paid to make sure that there's not a ugly side to this building to handle any of the back of house operations. Next slide. So this is one of the slides that I wanted to focus on a little bit. This is on the east side of the building, looking kind of southwest, if you will. One of the keys to this is that you're going to see basically the entire first floor glazing. There's going to be windows going all the way down to the ground with just like a 12-inch stoop at the bottom, and that's it. So you're really going to see into these spaces, and it's going to be a high-quality kind of modern look to it. So with an 8-foot walk there and all that glass there, the dominant feel is going to be the quality of the building itself. You know, we had several conversations with Patrick, and it's our team's feel that putting landscaping in there actually detracts from the building itself, as long as we're meeting everything all the way around it. Hopefully everyone agrees that, you know, the quality of the building and everything will be prominent enough to avoid any issues with us asking for the landscape request, variance request. Next page. So this is the ground floor of the building itself. It's going to be broken into 4 retail units. There aren't any letters of interest signed up yet, so I can't divulge any names, but there's been a lot of interest already from juice operations, coffee operations, some fast casual, food operations, as well as other retail folks. But the key to this is, and you know, we're adamant about it, is this is not going to be a sit-down. None of these spaces are going to be sit down and eat. This is come and grab it and go. These are smaller spaces, and the way this whole building will be laid out, the back of house in these spaces will be towards the west side, so out towards Ford Road. Ford Road? No, Canton Center Road. And there's just simply not going to be space in these for people to come in, eat, sit down. The parking isn't available for that, so if there's a juicery or something, this is all going to be to-go operations. Top floor, Havens Orthodontics is going to own and operate that 4,000 square foot space on the south side of the building. And then there's going to be 2 other operations, and they want it to be somewhat harmonious with what they have going on the south side, so probably a pediatric dentist or something along those lines. It's going to be geared towards the mouth, if you will. One of the kind of the key things, and we'll work through this at site plan, is what the hope is, you can see that kind of spiral thing in the center breezeway. That's actually a slide to get from the top floor down to the bottom floor if kids want to do that coming up and down. So like I said, there's been a lot of thought process into this building to really make this a destination, if you will. Having the ability to have office space upstairs and some retail downstairs may give Aaron the ability to offer, you know, a $10 gift card to a coffee shop downstairs if it's going to take them a little extra time to get your braces wired or whatever. I don't know the technology with you guys, but yeah, it's just, you know, the two uses, the 2 floors are going to work well together. Something else to point out, you can see it, I showed you on that one perspective, the floor plans here for the outdoor space. We'll finalize this during the site plan, but you know, you can see that each one of these units, each one of these spaces are going to have an outdoor lunch area, just, you know, refreshment area, whatever, where people can go outside and wait if they have to. Next slide. So here are the elevations. Just touch on a couple of things. As Patrick alluded to in his review comments, you know, this is just preliminary. We'll get into the details and we'll tell you what the percentages of all the stone and everything else are, but you know, you don't see a lot of hardy plank. You don't see, this is a high quality building, lots of block, lots of brick, lots of steel, lots of glass, and it's all going to work well together. Next slide. So same on this. This is, you know, I guess go back a slide if you will, actually, for a second. So that the top elevation is the elevation from Canton Center Road. There's not going to be entrances on any of those retail units on the first floor from Canton Center Road, but it's still going to have that harmonious kind of full first floor glass feel to it. It's going to be blacked out there, you know, because that may be back of house for some of these. if one of these end users has to have a kitchen or anything in the back side there, that's where it would be. So you're not going to see all the way through these. At least right now, we'll see as we get into detailed design of each of the units. But the intent is still to show a harmonious kind of elevation all the way around. We'll just have to figure out the best use for screening that, because the goal is, it's a tough building to build because you basically have to build 4 really nice sides to it. Okay, next slide. I guess we touched on that one already. So we've got a, Patrick, if you could bring up, we actually did a little fly-through type presentation for you all. Hopefully it works. This just gives a good feel for what this site's going to look like at full build-out. On the south side there, that kind of rough-looking grass area, that's the stormwater detention basin area. As Patrick alluded to, one of the other things is the ability with the extension of, or the expansion of this parcel, the ability to pull those entrances further away from the hard intersection. We all know that's kind of a goofy intersection right there, so this actually was very appealing to the road commission during our initial discussions with them as well. That's it, right? Yep, there you go. So we're here to answer any questions that you may have about the building, the layout, the site, anything else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. A very comprehensive presentation. I do appreciate that. We opened the public hearing, right?
Yes.
All right. So why don't we just start from the audience? If you gentlemen will stay there, just in case there's any questions. Anyone from the audience have questions or comments for the project sponsors on this?
Move to close the public hearing?
Support.
All right, got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Engel and support by Commissioner Zuber. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, well, we're going to go right to the commission. Commissioner Okan, what do you think of this project?
The building itself is nice. I like the building, and it's very high quality. I like the layout. I guess, Patrick, my question is, can you give us in detail, as much as you can, what uses are permitted in the C1 Village Shopping?
Yes. Let me flip to it. In the Village Shopping Center, there are roughly 10 uses that are allowed. The first is specialty retail, so bakery, grocery, convenience. Second is personal service establishments like salons and clothing, apparel, repair. Third is professional offices. Fourth is medical and dental clinics. Fifth is financial institutions. Sixth is restaurants, either carry-out or standard restaurants. Seventh is child and adult daycare center. That one would probably be unlikely given that there's not sufficient outdoor play area, but maybe for an adult daycare. The eighth is a planned shopping center, which is essentially a building which is a collection of the permitted uses. Ninth is a personal fitness center, which is like a martial arts studio, dance studio, yoga, art studio, things like that. 10th is a veterinary office and hospital.
Okay. Yeah, my only concern is just the C1 portion of the project, so I'd like to hear what some of the other commissioners think.
Okay, Commissioner Engel?
I'm all set. I think it's a good project. I look forward to it.
Commissioner Zuber, or I'm sorry, Commissioner Perkins?
We look the same.
I usually don't have anything to say. I wanted the Rocky theme when we were watching that aerial thing go round and round. That's what I think it looks great, and you did a wonderful presentation.
Commissioner Zuber?
I have a couple of questions. The variance from the height, I'm curious why it needs to be so tall.
So we did have some discussion about that. We are going for the 5-foot addition on top because of two primary reasons. One, just the quality, the trends right now in both, the medical office industry as well as the retail is somewhat higher of an elevation, more spacious, gives you a little bit more of a comfortable feel. Combined with the need, we want to put a parapet up there to help screen the, any of the utilities that are on the roof itself.
Because we don't have a back of house, everything has to go up on the roof, so.
What was that?
Because there's no back of house,
Oh,
so we don't have the ability to put everything down below. So we're, because we have to basically do 4 sides of this building, everything is up on top of the roof itself.
but that makes sense, except that I would assume that the ordinance, the 30-foot height accommodates a parapet as well. So what you're saying basically is the interior height, ceiling heights.
It's a combination of both. The 30-foot height does, the parapet, in a standard building, all the air conditioning units, in a 2-story building typically aren't up on top. They're actually on the ground, screened on one side. That's kind of the standard, and in this scenario, we want to put them up on top.
I've seen a lot of buildings in Canton where it's only 1 story and they have the mechanicals on the roof, but, okay. I have another question about the square footage of the building. On the drawings that we have in our packet, there's a floor plan, like of the second floor plan, where it shows that the office suite that you said was going to be for the orthodontic office is 4,000 square feet, and then there's 2 smaller suites that say 3,000 square feet each. It doesn't seem possible that those could each be 3,000 square feet, and then the big suite is 4,000. So I'm curious how that was calculated. It's a little farther down, that beige drawing, or the blue drawing there. Like, just logically, they can't both be true.
Yeah, we'd have to,
I think it might include some of the exteriors. It might also include some of that exterior patio space on that in the office areas. We can verify with the
Okay.
building architectures exactly what square footage is included in there.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. I mean, it's a nice-looking building. I question the variance for the height, but, I don't agree, but anyway, okay.
That's it. Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great-looking building, and I think if you got some coffee shops and a bakery in there, you could be pretty darn busy with all the students, but that's kind of what makes me nervous. I know that you had the traffic impact that you wouldn't allow left turns during the peak times, but, and maybe this example isn't particularly accurate, but I think the peak times can last a lot longer than the half hour in the afternoon. It takes those kids a long time to get out of the parking lots, and usually there's a wreck a day, which slows everything down. I don't know if any of you had kids that went to the park, but
Mine got out of it, thankfully.
yeah, no, it's the kids driving out and everything can get pretty, they're new drivers.
Why don't you have your mic on so people can
So I just am a little worried about all of that and making sure that the left turn is a long enough time that the students are completely out of there and then it's safe. And then I think you also said something about a walkway along there, maybe between the park and And where your little sitting area is that right? That you'd put some sort of walkway?
So we have, probably go down to the landscape plan, or right there is fine, Patrick, yeah. So you can see we show along in the right-of-way of both roads, we have your conventional sidewalks that meet your ordinance requirements, and as well as concrete stubs out to the crosswalks for both Joy and for Canton Center. And then that internal area that you see on that, right, all of that area for the landscape area, that's kind of that stone hatch, that's going to be concrete or pavers or, some sort of, we're not sure yet. We have to finalize the design for all of that, but that will be hardscaped area as well.
Okay, I guess I was thinking you were talking about across the road. I misunderstood.
No, there's the conventional crosswalk, and we're just going to make sure that the sidewalks are, and those sidewalks are already there.
There's already an existing crosswalk going to the north of Joy Road there. There's just no receiving ramps on either side, but the crosswalk signals are there. So we're gonna restripe it and place the receiving ramps on both sides there, so you have a true crosswalk for the intersection.
So these improvements will actually improve that intersection from a pedestrian vehicular conflict standpoint.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that I can just see a kid, running late, grabbing a coffee, running back over the road, and another kid running late, driving their car. And, yeah.
Yeah, those two don't mix.
No, they don't. They don't. So I think those are my concerns. I think it's a beautiful looking building, and I think it, could do very well, but
Hey, Greg,
it's an intersection that makes me nervous.
I don't think so.
Patrick, what's your opinion on the height and the reason for it being so much taller than, if that's a big difference, 30 to 35 feet is a variance.
The ordinance does allow for some exceptions to higher roof heights. In some of the cases, it also requires that if it's an additional height, the building has to be set back farther. And because they're asking for a setback modification, that wouldn't really apply, so they'd just be asking for that additional height. In terms of the height of the building itself, it would be a little bit of a difference between that and what we commonly see. So there will be the visual there. Some of the foundation landscaping on the east side of the building, they are reallocating to the west and north side. So there will be some trees, some deciduous trees along the frontages of Joy Road and Canton Center Road to soften it a little bit. And as the applicant did note, because of the higher building height, there were some restrictions on the east side of the building in terms of what they could put there to allow for a fire apparatus to get to the roof based on the additional height. So there are some additional requirements they do have to meet for fire access that they have.
But I guess, part of the ordinances is an aesthetic thing, correct? The 30 feet, so we don't end up with a bunch of really tall buildings, or no? Is it just strictly?
Most of it is aesthetics in terms of having a maximum standard across a district. So to have it at 30 feet, the ordinance intends that across the O1 district that there would be 30 feet, except for some exceptions where the height goes higher, in which case it has to be set back farther from the lot line just to have an angle from where you're looking. And then in some of the commercial districts, the height gets a little bit higher. So as we get into the C2, C3, and C4 districts, the height goes from 30 up to 35 feet. So the office district was something that was intended to be a little less than those commercial districts.
Aside from the schools, that would be the tallest building in the area, because there's a commercial park to the south, and those buildings are not nearly that high, right?
Yeah, the one to the south, a lot of those are one story.
One story, right, okay.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious, because it's a self-imposed deal. It's not, I don't see a reason for doing it other than aesthetic.
Yeah, probably, by looking at the plans, it's aesthetic, and the applicants can reply to anything beyond the aesthetics. And then for that proposed modification, they have to come up with a definite benefit for all the modifications that they're proposing. So they would have to show in their statement of benefits if what they're proposing is worthy of having that height higher than the maximum.
I guess if I may, it's aesthetics, but it's, it's marketability. Everyone that we're talking to, the brokers that are talking with us based on where everything stands in today's times, they're looking for a higher internal volume, internal roof within their structures themselves. So, when you look at a lot of one-story strip retail, you can go a little bit higher and it doesn't affect your ordinance. In this scenario, because it's kind of a unique situation with their, the office is on the second floor, that's how we had to accommodate everything, is asking for this request.
But the office, so even offices are looking for taller ceilings?
Yes.
So, I mean, I guess, as an architect, I'm wondering, then, does that mean we have to look at our ordinance at some point?
That's what I'm thinking.
Because it bothers me this is a big difference. This is a quite a big difference from our ordinance to what you're proposing.
Yes, and in speaking with Jeff Goulet, your previous township planner, as we were coming in to prepare for our proposal here, we had considered a rezoning option to going to the C1 in order to accommodate the specific uses that we're looking at and getting on the first floor for the retail section there. But that also entailed a number of different modification requests for that. And he had indicated that the township is actually currently looking at updating their zoning ordinance to mirror some of the more modern requirements and desires of the commercial industry. And so that is something that I believe is already underway, starting to take a look at that modification.
Is that true, Patrick? Since we don't have Jeff here to...
Well, we did start looking at some ordinance updates when the township hall was closed and a lot of the projects came to a halt. Jeff and I had worked a little bit on some proposed language for a comprehensive zoning ordinance update. And now with us back open and all those projects are starting up again, updating the zoning ordinance has gone to the back burner. But we hadn't had any, nothing really set in stone in terms of a proposal to come to the planning commission with. We have a lot of proposed language in terms of things that could improve the zoning ordinance in a lot of respects, but nothing that we were ready to come to the planning commission with.
Was the building height, I mean, just asking because I've been on the other side of the dais many times as an architect, and I'm just curious, like, what, is that something you guys are contemplating, raising the height for buildings in the township, or?
I know it's something that we had talked about, but in my ordinance where I have a lot of margin notes, I didn't have anything specific about that. Okay. So Jeff may have had some in his own notes that I don't have in front of me right now, but that would be something where even if changing a development standard was a proposal, that's part of a larger comprehensive update process that during the discussion and the deliberations, sometimes things get put back the way they are or are not fully accepted the way that they're proposed. So, really, I don't have anything in my notes where there was a firm change to that. There are some items in the district where, for example, as I had said, for C2, 3, and 4, it's a 35-foot height. In the C1, it's a 25-foot height, so it's quite a bit lower. Now, the C1, the 25-foot height, I could see where maybe we go a little bit higher there to encourage some redevelopment and allow a second story. But for the 30-foot, we would really have to look at some project examples to see if that's really warranted.
Yeah.
Greg, do you have any questions?
Does
Okay.
anyone else have an
Yes.
opinion about this? I'm just curious.
My feeling is the 30 feet, at least for now, is a good point to try to achieve. I do appreciate your efforts to screen the rooftop units. That's always a pet peeve of mine. Although I do find it interesting that even in your rendering, I see a couple of units peeking out over the top. I don't have as much heartburn on that because you're kind of like first in over there. The other office park is lower, but it's screened away from you, I believe, by trees and an open area. So we're not kind of comparing the two. There's nothing else around there comparing it. To the north, you've got housing, you know, in Plymouth, you've got the schools over on the other side. So it's kind of like raw territory. I don't want to see us, I would rather see this as a modification than go for, oh, well, we should change them all to 35 feet.
I'm not suggesting
Okay,
that.
so
Yeah.
well, I know you said maybe we should take a look at that, and maybe we should, but right now, I'm thinking the 30 feet is great. I'd rather deal with this modification on this for a single project than.
Yeah, and my concern is that we're setting a precedent
Yes, we
more
are.
than anything else. And so if it's true that Jeff Goulet said that we were considering changing the ordinance, then I kind of want to know that.
Okay, yeah.
But if we're just giving a variance in this case, then we are setting a precedent, and then the next people come in and they're like, well, you gave it to them, so.
Right, I understand.
That's my concern. And like I said, as somebody who's been on the other side of this and had to make good arguments as to why I was entitled to a variance, when I see, well, it's just so that we can have, 13-foot ceilings inside and then screen the parapet, which we have to do anyway, it doesn't seem like it seems like a self-imposed hardship to me.
And with the plan development, the variance standard that a ZBA might consider, those wouldn't apply. So for someone to show a practical difficulty or that the ordinance is unnecessarily burdensome, that's not something that they would have to come to the planning commission to try to show a cause for. What they would do is basically put on their plan and their PD agreement that we're proposing to modify the standard for this project on this site, and the offsetting benefit would be whatever they list and whatever is discussed with the planning commission, including the architecture and some of the other on-site amenities. And sometimes plan developments can be seen as having a precedent, and sometimes they can't.
Okay.
In this case, we have a signature corner of the township where it could be improved by some kind of redevelopment. There are some other corners that might be like it, but not many. And so it'll just be a matter of whether the additional height that's proposed is made better by some of the design, and whether both the design and the other benefits make the project worthy of the height modification.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. They're not really criticisms as much as just questions on the thinking and planning on this. You're not utilizing the entire site with this project, correct? There's going to be area to the east and to the south that's going to virtually be undeveloped.
No, we are using every square inch of this property. The property to the east and to the south is actually being utilized for stormwater management and landscape greenbelt.
But it is part of this project, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
As you see that layout plan right there on the screen, you can see that thick black line is actually our property line. So we have to have a certain amount of setback requirements from that detention pond to the property for maintenance purposes, and then the green belt over on the east side as well. Everything is being utilized.
So if I say to you, well, why couldn't you have moved 5 feet in setback to the east? You're saying you could not have shifted everything that way because of what's going on that side of the parking lot?
We can shift it east,
Okay.
but not south.
You
Correct.
can't go south, but you
Yeah.
can.
So the variance request we had for the canopy protrusion was actually on the north side of the building.
Okay.
On the west side of the building, we have set that back off the property line so that there's no variance request for the setback. We can shift the parking lot and the building to the east, shift it all over 5 feet. That would not be a problem to do.
And also, the 4 parking spaces that, you're requiring a modification on, you could not have found a way to add those?
So the parking spaces is based on an assumption of using a carry-out style restaurant for all 4 of the units down below. So that is strictly based on a worst-case type scenario assumption for those. If a retailer were to go in on 1 or more of the units on the ground level, that parking requirement is actually less than what would be required for the carryout. And so we're reflecting the worst-case scenario, also recognizing that many of the patients that will be utilizing the office space on the upper floor are also going to be jointly using the first floor, hopefully the first floor restaurant-type uses there. So there's some shared parking in there as well.
Okay. Okay, and then on the south side, there's the part that juts out. Is that that's a stairway, elevator type of
That's
arrangement?
correct. It's the second emergency egress that's required for building code.
Oh, that won't be the standard access. It'll be emergency only?
Correct.
Okay,
Your standard access will be through that center court area.
gotcha.
You can climb up the slide, too.
Yes.
You can go up the slide if
Yeah,
you like, yeah.
okay. All right. That's all I have. I think it's a beautiful project. Don't get me wrong. I think it'll be a great addition, especially with what's there now, with the empty building and whatnot. I drove by there, and it's sadly in need of something, okay? But this, I think, could be a project that lasts a long time and will be a key area for Canton. I don't know if other commissioners have any more heartburn on the height, or did you want them to move that setback to the east? They can't move it to the south, but they can move 5 feet. I don't know that it's significant.
I don't, the overhangs don't bother me.
Okay,
I mean, it's not like they're into a sidewalk or something, so
right.
it's just the height is a little,
Are you
Mr.
good?
Chairman, I move to recommend approval of the Havens Orthodontics Plan Development District on parcels number 010-990013, 000, and 010-990014, 000, as provided in the Plan Development Agreement and Plan documents.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Engel, who's getting right to the point, and a support by Commissioner Okan. Any further discussion on the motion? Any of those details we just discussed? Okay. Hearing none, seeing none. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
sure. Commissioner Okan,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
That's a yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, what's their next step, Patrick?
The next step, because it's a minor plan development, the next step will be for the applicants to go to the Township Board of Trustees for final action on the minor plan development.
Okay.
If they are successful, then they'll be back here within a few months, I expect, with a site plan application.
Okay. All right, good luck, gentlemen.
Thanks again, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our second agenda item of the evening is the Berkshire Apartments, where we're considering another final PDD and site plan with this, the property which is located at Salts, west of Canton Center. Patrick, could you give us detail?
There you go. Sure. The applicant proposes to locate 172 apartment units on approximately 24.63 acres located on the north side of Salts Road, west of Waterside Road, which is west of Canton Center Road. The project density
I'm sorry, Patrick, hold on one second. Hey, guys, can you guys move away out of the hallway, because you're picking up on the mic?
I don't know if those doors can be shut.
Thank you.
Thank
they're
you.
moving. Yep.
Those are sensitive mics.
They're hot.
All right,
Very
thank you,
hot.
That's what we
sir.
like.
Okay,
Thank you,
the
Julia.
project density of almost 7 units per acre is less than the maximum density of 8 units per acre recommended by the comprehensive plan and allowed under the R6 zoning. The site will have 4 points of access from Salts Road to the south, from an extension of Greystone Lane to the northeast, and 2 new connecting roads to Waterside Road to the east. All buildings will be 2 stories, and they will also meet the architectural requirements of the zoning ordinance, which means that they'll have at least 50% brick or masonry, and they will also have attached 2-car garages. A little bit of history of the site and the adjacent site to the east. Both this site and the site to the east was originally part of the Apartments at Cambridge plan development, which was approved in 1998 for 599 residential units and included the areas known as the Traditions of Cambridge and the Glens at Cambridge. At that time, only the Traditions of Cambridge was constructed for residential condominium units, and the remaining areas of that PD had expired. However, at the time, much of the infrastructure had been installed in the site, so a lot of the water, sanitary, storm lines, so that when the project was resurrected, a lot of that infrastructure would be in place and the layout would be fixed more or less. In 2017, a plan development was approved for the Glens at Cambridge for an additional 92 residential units. If the proposed Berkshire Apartments plan development is approved for the 172 residential units, the total number of residential units for all 3 developments will be 500, which is 99 fewer than what were approved in 1998. Previously, the Planning Commission and the Township Board reviewed the preliminary plan development for the 172-unit project, and both the Planning Commission and Board had recommended approval and had approved the preliminary PD. So at this time, the applicant comes with the application for final plan development, as well as a application for approval of the site plan. For the final PD, every plan development district is required to demonstrate the definite benefits, and the applicant proposes the following benefits. First is maintaining 54.45% of the site as open space. The next is completing the Cambridge PD in a consistent and compatible manner, including the architecture and 2-car garages, which are attached. The third benefit is the reduction in the total number of residential units from the original plan development. The fourth is a connection and additional parking for the community center on the west side of Waterside. Another benefit is construction of an internal sidewalk network that exceeds the minimum required by the zoning ordinance. And finally, the plan development proposes the construction of a sidewalk on the adjacent parcel to the east on the north side of Salts Road, which will fill a gap that is frequently traveled. If you ever drive down Salts Road, you'll see kind of a footpath that's been across the yard to the east there, east of Waterside, because there's some sidewalks there where there's a gap and a lot of people travel Salts Road on the north. In our review letter dated for November 9th, I won't go through a lot of the items because I went through many of these when we looked at the preliminary plan development, but there are a few items I will touch on. The first is the traffic impact. Previously, the applicant submitted a traffic impact analysis which recommended the widening of the eastbound boulevard lane of Stonewood Road by 2 to 4 feet. Stonewood is an east-west road that, I'll zoom in on it here, ends at the clubhouse to the west, and Stonewood Boulevard continues east all the way to Canton Center Road, and it gets quite a bit of traffic from the existing development east of Waterside. And so what the traffic impact analysis recommended was at Canton Center Road that Stonewood be widened by 2 to 4 feet going eastbound to allow for a left and right dedicated turn lanes. The applicant has agreed to do that, and part of the application is to widen Stonewood Road by 2 to 4 feet at Canton Center Road going eastbound to allow for dedicated right and left turn lanes. The next item that I want to discuss are the schedule of regulations and modifications. And I won't go through each modification, but I will go through the general topics. The applicant proposes modifications from the following requirements. First is the building length, which allows for only 150 feet maximum. The second is the building spacing from rear to rear. The third is the building spacing from side to rear. The next is the building height. For the building height, there's 26 feet proposed and a maximum of 25 feet required, so there's a foot over on the building height to allow for the roof peaks. The next modification is the road width. 27 feet is required. Most of the roads are 24 feet, except some roads in front of houses at dead ends are 20 feet. The next is driveway length. The minimum driveway length is 22 feet. There's a 20-foot driveway length proposed for buildings 15 and 16. The rest of the buildings will have the minimum 22-foot wide or long driveway. And then the last two modifications are the front yard setback from the lot line adjacent to waterside and the setbacks between parking lots and residential units. For the most part, the modifications for the building spacing and some of the other modifications are interior to the development. So most of these, there's very little or no impact on adjacent properties in terms of the modifications proposed. And the last item that I want to note in the report is the sidewalks. There are additional sidewalks that have been added to the project since the preliminary plan development. We've been working with the applicant in terms of variations of the internal sidewalks. And at preliminary PD, there were some sidewalks that went through some of the open spaces. Although after looking at some of the existing grade and some of the landscaping that was required, it was very difficult to come up with an internal sidewalk network that really made sense and that someone could really find their way around. So what the applicants decided to do was to expand the sidewalks along the streets within the development to allow for a greater network. And as a result, more sidewalks were added in a manner that exceeds the requirements of the zoning ordinance. So that concludes those major parts of the report. There are a couple items on page 4 of our report where we reviewed the landscape plan, and there are standards on the north and the west sides where the applicants proposed the frontage standards instead of the buffer standards because in the original plan development, it did not leave enough room for a berm on the north and west sides, and there can't be a berm constructed without significant removal of vegetation and significant grading, which was not allowed for when they put the infrastructure in back in the late 90s. So as a result, the applicants proposed to retain as much as the vegetation on the north and west sides as possible, and then supplement it to meet the landscaping based on a frontage standard, not necessarily a berm standard. And finally, there are a couple items with the lighting plan where some fixtures need to be moved to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance. And we recommend that that be taken care of before the application goes to the township board. So our recommendation in conclusion is approval of the final plan development district subject to widening the eastbound boulevard lane of Stonewood Road by 2 to 4 feet to allow for dedicated right and left turn lanes at Canton Center Road in accordance with the recommendation of the traffic impact assessment, and approval of the site plan subject to the applicant revising the lighting plans in accordance with the recommendations above. That concludes our review of the application, and we'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. This is a public hearing as well. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing? So moved. Who supported that? Okay.
No. Nancy.
All right, we've got a motion to
Support.
open the, don't
I'll-
fight over it, people.
All the women here look alike.
I've got a motion to open the public hearing by Commissioner Okon and support by Commissioner Eggenberger. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, do we have a project sponsor here today? Sir, would you come on up and add anything that you'd like to Planner Sloan's description?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Mark Kasab on behalf of Canton Center. You may have recognized Jim Galbraith, who's not here this evening. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here. Patrick did a great job. You know, many of the modifications are based on, as Patrick pointed out, the infrastructure being installed in the 90s on this development. All the water, sewer, gas, sanitary is underground. We've worked closely with Patrick and our architect to mimic what we have at traditions and the Glens. I personally have worked with Cobblestone, who's a subdivision to the west. I recently, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, attended via Zoom an HOA meeting with them, assured them the proper screening will take place behind the 7 or 8 neighbors to the west of us. I believe we have a pretty good plan. Our company's been around for about 50 years, runs approximately 8,000 units all in Michigan. Most recently completed a nice project in Novi, and we're excited to start this project in the spring of '21. That being said, I know you got a long evening, so answer any
Okay.
questions you may have.
All right, thank you. If you can just stay in that general area, just in case we do have some questions. I'm going to go to the audience and find out if there are any questions or comments or concerns on this project. This is a project that's a long time been coming, actually. And if we approve this, it'll kind of complete that area. Anything? Anyone? All right, got a motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Okun and support by Commissioner Zuber. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Did I get that wrong?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes. It was Julia.
oh, okay. All right, so my hearing is a little bit bad up here, okay?
That's okay. It's
Plus,
very
I'm not on
And
the
I
mic.
can't,
I'm good. I'm good with this. I
that's
think it's
right,
great.
your mic was up. Okay, there's my excuse.
She
Anyway.
was throwing her voice. It does.
All right, the public hearing is closed. We're going to go down this end of the commission. Commissioner Eggenberger?
No, I don't think I do have any questions. I think it's pretty excellent. That's great.
Okay. Commissioner Zuber? No whispering up here.
She was just finishing her sentence and I didn't want to interrupt her. I have no issues.
No? Commissioner Perkins?
I'm good.
You good? And Commissioner Engel?
I just have one question about the building length. One building's 236 feet long and 150 feet is permitted.
Let me bring that one up here.
198. It's still
Building
long.
length?
You're right.
Building length for buildings 20 and 22, 236 feet, and it says 150 feet permitted.
Yeah, I can bring up those buildings here, so that is 20 and 22. So those buildings, 22 to the north of Fremont and 20 to the south of Fremont, those are longer buildings, and I think one of the reasons those are 10-unit buildings, and I don't think there's any other buildings in the development that are 10 units. And I think those buildings were chosen largely because of some of the infrastructure on the ground. They had a large block length along that area and those streets. So those 2 buildings in particular were made much longer than the others.
Because of what?
I think it was mostly because of the infrastructure that was in the ground and based on the previous layout of the PD back in the late 90s, that when they designed this PD with the roads and everything, with the infrastructure being in the ground, they made those buildings longer to fit in there. And I don't have the file in front of me to see if that's what they were originally, but I know based on the infrastructure laid out, there were some long buildings in that area.
Did this go through the zoning board, or does it have to go through the zoning board?
This will go to the planning commission and then the township board, because it's a plan development.
It doesn't go through the zoning board?
No, it wouldn't be a variance, it's just it's a modification through the plan development process.
And one other thing on the fiscal impact. Applicable tax revenues and budget expenditures. What budget expenditures would we anticipate? We're hiring more police or fire or more librarians? Well, it says library fund, and it says it'll have relatively neutral impact, so we're hiring more folks?
Well, the way that we calculate the fiscal impact, and there's many ways to do a fiscal impact, and what we do, it's not a very sophisticated model, and the zoning ordinance doesn't really call for a sophisticated model, but what we try to do is we try to look at the taxable value of a project and then multiply that by the millage rates for each of those things, like police, fire, library, et cetera. Now, the library is a separate entity, so our focus is more on the general fund and the public safety funds. And we look at the expenditures from all those funds, and we divide it by the township population to get kind of a rough estimate of, if we did things on a per-person basis, how much does it cost to service per person in the community? It doesn't really work well when we look at commercial projects, because if there's no offset for people, they're still spending money, it's just not on a per-person basis. So for residential projects, we try to get a general expenditure out of those funds on a per-person basis, and then multiply that by the number of people in the development to come up with a theoretical increase of an expenditure to service that development with all the people living there. And then we look at the tax revenue that's raised by the development of the millage rate multiplied by the taxable value to see if there's much of a difference between
We are
those
getting
two.
more tax revenue from this project, right? It's 27 million bucks.
There will be more tax revenue.
But when you say relatively neutral, it means it's not a benefit to the community to have another $27 million on the tax books?
Well, there will be some additional expenditures, so if there's ever fire runs or police runs, there will be additional expenditures. What those will be exactly, we don't know, but whenever there's new development in a community, the expenditures will normally go up because there will be fire runs, police runs. There may be general fund impacts by having to provide more services out of the general fund. But generally, what we like to look at is if there's a development that will certainly raise quite a bit of tax revenue,
Yeah.
if we do the expenditures on a per person, when I say neutral, it appears that it's neutral based on, it'll raise tax revenue, it'll also raise expenditures, and the difference between the two doesn't appear to be that significant, where we have a project that's going to be a drain on tax resources where it doesn't raise much tax revenue but costs a lot. So those are some things that we try to calculate just to try to see what the impact might be.
Hopefully, we don't have many of those. That's a drain on the community, right?
Usually not, usually based on property values. A lot of the ones that we've seen come across for planned developments have been either neutral or positive in terms of those impacts.
Okay, very good.
Commissioner Okan?
I don't have anything. It's pretty much what we saw a couple months ago, so I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. I have a question for the project sponsor. Well, 172 apartment units. Was there ever a consideration for, let's say, doing half of these as condominiums?
You know, so we were actually the developer on the Glens as well, where I believe 92 units were developed there. We did consider condominiums. Practically speaking, between the financing of the residential apartments today and the demand, we're pretty much 100% occupied everywhere we own our units. We felt that rentals would be the way to go here.
Okay, and I know you have to approximate this. What would be the price point on renting?
That's a
one of
great
these
question.
units?
Met with our marketing team last week. We anticipate starting these off at north of $2,000 per unit.
Okay, all right. For the entire area, all three, it's three different complexes, right? All rolled into one if this gets developed. What's your percentage of rental versus condo?
So there's Patrick, if you have a calculator in front of you, we have 172 apartments, 500 total units, of which I believe 600 are allowed, but 172 divided by 500 is...
About 34.4%.
Okay, so all the other units are condominiums?
Correct.
Correct, okay,
They
so
are.
it's just rental, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm glad to see finally that this is coming to this point. Again, this has been a long time coming for that entire parcel of land. It was going to be a big project when it was first designed, and, gone through economic crunches and all sorts of other things. It has taken a long time to get here. So I wish you a lot of success. I'm okay with this project.
Someone once told me it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Thank you.
Okay. All right, do I hear a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend the final approval of the Berkshire Apartments Plan Development District on tax parcel number 061-99-0006-707 as provided in the planned development agreement in plan documents, subject to widening the eastbound Boulevard lane of Stonewood Road by 2 to 4 feet to allow for dedicated right and left turn lanes at Canton Center Road in accordance with the recommendation of the traffic impact assessment. Further, I move to recommend approval of the site plan for Berkshire Apartments, which includes 172 apartment units on the approximately 24.63 acres, approximately, as proposed, subject to the PDD approval by the Township Board and lighting modifications that meet the illumination requirements of Section 2.13 of the zoning ordinance.
Thank you. Do I hear? Oh, we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Perkins. Any further discussion on the motion? Good. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Certainly, Commissioner Ocon,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
That's a yes. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you. You do the same. Patrick, what's the next step for this project?
The next step will be for the applicant to go to the Township Board of Trustees for final plan development, action on the final plan development application, as well as action on the site plan application.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get a chance to see your drawings there.
We had the same ones up top.
Okay, fine.
I didn't realize they were going to be up on the screen.
All right, okay, thank you. Have a good night. All right, our third agenda item of the night is the Meadows of Cherry Hill, where we're considering a preliminary site plan on property which is located west of Ridge Road between Cherry Hill and Salts Roads. Commissioner Sloan, would you give us more detail? Commissioner Sloan, Planner Sloan.
Thank you.
I know who you are.
Yeah, you almost gave me a promotion. The applicant proposes to locate 38 single-family residential condominiums on approximately 15.8 acres located on the west side of Ridge Road between Salts Road and the ITC corridor. The project density of 2.41 units per acre is less than the maximum density of 4 units per acre permitted in the village edge of the Cherry Hill Village Overlay District. There is one entrance proposed on Ridge Road on the east side and a connection to West Ridge Estates of Canton to the west proposed via an extension of Hesperus Drive. The project sponsor proposes to maintain 33.9% of the site as open space, as well as preserving trees along the existing watercourse and preserve existing trees around the perimeter of the site. The preliminary site plan is based on an approved plan development, which the Township Board of Trustees approved on August 25th of 2020. Since the plan development was approved, there have been some minor changes to the pond and orientation of some of the lots on the west side of the development. As a result, these changes have decreased some of the lot areas, but also increased the open space from 32.3% to 33.9%, as well as increased the drain buffer from the rear yards of the lots on the east side of Bellwood Lane. On the second page of our report, we note the schedule of regulations as well as reciting any modifications that were previously granted during the plan development review. For the lot dimensions, the Cherry Hill Village overlay allows the shape to vary from 50 to 90 feet wide and 85 to 100 feet long. The approved plan development requires lot widths of at least 60 feet and lot depths of at least 130 feet. For the front yard setbacks, the Cherry Hill Village overlay allows for a variation of between 10 and 20 feet for the front yard setback. The approved plan development setbacks are 20 feet for the front yard, except that 15 feet was approved on the non-access sides of the corner lots 6, 18, 19, 26, 31, 34, and 38. Those are illustrated on the plan. Our only note there is that sheet 03 of the site plan has to be corrected with those numbers, so that's just a text change. The third item of the schedule of regulations is the side yard setbacks. The Cherry Hill Village overlay allows the side yard setbacks to be between 0 and 10 feet. The side yard setbacks in the approved plan development are 5 feet. And finally, the rear yard setbacks in the Cherry Hill Village overlay are not necessarily prescribed, but the minimum rear yard setback in the approved PD is 30 feet. Next, there are 3 modifications to the zoning ordinance that were also approved in the plan development agreement. The first is that there are no horizontal offsets required along the rear sides of the facades. The second is that the road easement width is 55 feet. There's a minimum of 60 feet required in the zoning ordinance, although the Cherry Hill Village design guidelines allow for right-of-way widths of 55 feet. So the proposed right-of-way width is consistent with the Cherry Hill Village overlay. And third, the road location within the required stormwater protection buffer. For the architecture and the lot layout, the architecture that was reviewed at the plan development stage is the same as the architecture proposed at the preliminary site plan stage. Therefore, it still complies with the Cherry Hill Village overlay district. And then the last items that I'll mention are the landscaping, lighting, and signage. There's a landscape plan included with the preliminary site plan, and it exceeds the ordinance in many respects. Prior to the final site plan review, the landscape plans have to be revised to include some proposed sod in some of the areas where it's required. So the landscape plans can be finalized prior to final site plan review. And finally, the lighting and signage must be included on the final site plan. Therefore, our recommendation is approval of the preliminary site plan, subject to corrections to sheet 03 and the landscape plans prior to final site plan review. The last thing I'll say is this is a proposed site condominium, and as such, there's a preliminary site plan review stage and a final site plan review stage. So if the preliminary site plan is recommended for approval and it's approved by the township board, the applicant will next go through engineering, and once engineering is finished, the applicant will come back here for final site plan review. So the Planning Commission will have another opportunity to review the plans and the landscaping. So with that, that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
Patrick, I didn't hear anything about a traffic impact assessment. Was that was done, right?
It was. I'll rehash some of that because we did look at the traffic impact during the plan development review, so I can go back and review what we had looked at. The project sponsor had submitted a traffic impact assessment during the plan development review, and the traffic impact assessment notes that there were some existing deficiencies at the intersection of Ford and Ridge, as well as the intersection of Ridge and Denton and Salts, and it concluded that the addition of traffic generated by the proposed development would have minimal impact on the operations of those intersections, and any improvements to those intersections would be the responsibility of Wayne County or MDOT as applicable. Our understanding is that at the time, MDOT was planning to install a left turn phasing this year at the intersection of Ford and Ridge. I'm not sure if that has taken place yet or if that's part of the Ridge Road paving project, but for any upgrade to Ford and Ridge, we would defer to MDOT on whether those phasing installations were planned.
Salts, Denton, and Ridge intersection, is there any idea? I had heard at one point that Wayne County was thinking about a traffic light there.
Yes, I have heard, I've heard that as well. I haven't heard anything official in terms of what will be done and when, but that is something that frequently comes up with the township staff. And I've heard it raised at the board level before, where we're aware that it is an issue there.
It's a dangerous intersection.
It is.
Very much so. Okay, all right. going to go to the commission. We're just going to kind of freeform this one. Anybody have any comments on this project? We've been dealing with this. How many times have we seen this?
There
This
was
has been at least-
twice
this is our third
during
time.
plan development, so this
Right.
would be the third.
Okay, so it's not new. Anything from the commission to concern or add?
I'm all set.
Everybody seems to be all
Good.
set and okay? Everybody's content? Well, then it sounds like it calls for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approvals of the Meadows of let me
Easy
start
for
that
you to
again.
say.
I move to recommend, I haven't even started drinking yet. I move to recommend approval of the Meadows of Cherry Hill preliminary site plan on tax parcels as noted, which includes 38 single-family residential site condominiums on approximately 15.8 acres, subject to the final site plan showing the required corrections to sheet 03 and the required details for landscaping, lighting, and signage.
Support.
Okay, we've got a motion on the floor by Commissioner Zuber and support by Commissioner Perkins. Any further discussion? Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Okan,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
Yes, and what's next for this project?
The next steps will be for the applicant to go to the Township Board of Trustees for action on the preliminary site plan. If the Township Board approves the preliminary site plan, the applicant will next go through the engineering process with Wayne County and the Township Engineering Services Division. And once they complete that process and their permits, at that time, they would come back to the Planning Commission for final site plan review. So it may be a few months, could be sooner, but we may see final site plan back here before we know it.
Okay, very good, very good. Our fourth agenda item of the night is the Mary A. Hauk, the Hop Family LLC property, which is where we're considering a future land use map amendment for property located west of Beck Road and south of Ford Road. Could you tell us more, Patrick?
Sure. The applicant proposes to amend the future land use plan map of the comprehensive plan by reclassifying the parcel at the southwest corner of Ford and Beck Road from medium low-density residential, which is 3 dwelling units per acre, to general commercial. The area is illustrated on the map as well as in the Planning Commission packet. The purpose of the proposed future land use map amendment application is to eventually construct a gas station and convenience store at the site. However, the proposal is conceptual and could change based on available zoning districts and development options of the zoning ordinance. With the exception of the Cherry Hill Village Overlay District, the only zoning district that allows for the construction of new gas stations is the C4 Interchange Service District, and the future land use classification of the comprehensive plan that supports C4 zoning is the general commercial classification. So in order for somebody to propose a gas station and convenience store at a site, they have to apply for a change to the future land use map that would support zoning. Now, we see in some parts of the township where there are gas stations in zoning districts that are not zone C4. The C3 district allows for the redevelopment of existing gas stations. So we have a number of gas stations in the township that are zone C3, and the zoning ordinance allows for the redevelopment of those types of stations. Beyond that, sometimes the plan development option can be used for a gas station, but to do that, it needs to be supported by the master plan, in which case the current master plan doesn't. And then finally, the Cherry Hill Village Overlay District does allow for gas stations, and as I'll get into my report in a few moments, there is an area in the Cherry Hill Village Overlay that has been approved through a plan development for a gas station. In reviewing a future land use map application, we look at the planning and zoning law of the state of Michigan, which provides that government has a legitimate interest in maintaining compatibility of surrounding areas, protecting and preserving natural resources, and ensuring adequate infrastructure such as roads, water supply, and sanitary sewage disposal. To that end, communities can adopt a master plan through the Michigan Planning Enabling Act and a zoning ordinance through the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. The site in question is about 4.29 acres, and as I noted, it's at the southwest corner of Ford and Beck Road. As we can see on the map, most of the surrounding future land uses are medium low-density residential to the west and south and east, which allows for up to 3 dwelling units per acre. Some of the review considerations that we look at is first looking at the state statute, the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, which allows a community to review its master plan at least once every 5 years. And at the time of the adoption of Canton Township's current master plan in 2017, the plan met all of the general purpose requirements of the Planning Enabling Act. Prior to a formal 5-year review of a comprehensive plan, there are 2 ways that a community, or 2 ways an amendment to Canton's plan can be initiated. The first is that the Planning Commission may initiate an amendment to any part of the plan pursuant to the Planning Act. The second way that the comprehensive plan can be amended is Canton Township allows an owner or an owner's agent to file a future land use map amendment application for consideration pursuant to the application made available by the township. Because the application before the Planning Commission is initiated by an owner's agent, our review of the application is limited to the future land use map and how the proposed future land use map amendment application complies with the existing policies of the plan. In other words, if the township initiates the master plan amendment process, any part of the comprehensive plan can be amended and reviewed. The applicant is limited only to the future land use map. In fact, the application states future land use map application. So what that means is that an applicant can apply to amend the future land use map, but the applicant cannot apply to amend the policies. Those are existing policies of the master plan that were adopted in 2017 and were well thought out and deliberated by the township, which included a significant amount of public participation. So those policies are fixed unless the township initiates an amendment to amend the policies. Otherwise, the applicant would have to propose an amendment to the map based on existing policies of the plan. In reviewing the application for a master plan amendment, we look at 5 criteria. The first criteria is the existing policies of the comprehensive plan, and this starts on page 3 of our review letter. And I'll zoom into some of the areas, and what I'll do is I'll focus generally on areas that are underlined. And so on page 3 of our review letter, we have a number of policies in the master plan that support the foundation of the master plan itself without specifying different districts, and then getting into some of the specific policies. So for example, in the commercial and office land use policies on pages 12 through 14, one of the policies states, Canton presently has a very limited amount of commercially zoned land located west of Canton Center Road. There is a desire to maintain a semi-rural character in the western portion of the township. Another policy is Objective 1.2 on page 34 of the plan and noted in page 4 of our report. And it states that Canton Township shall provide adequate land for commercial uses and direct new commercial uses to areas which are compatible with established land use patterns, which can be supported by available public facilities, and supports the importance of these uses in maintaining a balanced mix of land uses and sustaining a viable economy. As we'll get into in a few moments, we'll look at some of the surrounding land uses of the subject site. Another policy is policy 1.2.3 on page 34, and it states to establish a general commercial land use designation on the future land use map for regional and highway-oriented commercial uses. So the use classification that the applicants are seeking is something that is classified as something that's a regional or highway-oriented commercial use, which is an intense commercial use, the most intense commercial classification in the master plan. Another policy of the master plan is Objective 3.3 on page 45 regarding the rural character. And it states that Canton Township shall strive to maintain the rural atmosphere of the western portion of the community. And finally, on page 45, it states that the township shall evaluate its zoning and subdivision regulations to ensure that the development standards allow for design flexibility and control to ensure that the development proposed in the western portions of the community is compatible with existing development and maintain the character of the area. So as we see in some of the policies here that we pull out that are related to not just the western part of the township, but some of the general commercial policies in general, as well as the policies of the current future land use classification of medium-low density residential. And so based on those policies, the proposed application to change the site from medium-low density residential to general commercial is not supported by the existing policies of the comprehensive plan. The second criteria that we look at is the adjacency or the proximity of the same or similar future land use classifications. As we previously noted, the adjacent sites to the south, west, and east are classified as medium-low density residential, which are consistent with the subject site. The adjacent site to the north is classified as a lower density residential. Therefore, general commercial future land use of the subject site would be inconsistent with the future land use classifications of the surrounding area. The nearest sites that are classified as general commercial on the future land use map are the northeast corner of Beck and Michigan Avenue, which is about 3.5 miles away, and along Ford Road east of Lilly Road, which is about 2.5 miles away. Although there are gas stations located outside of the general commercial future land use classes, as I noted, most of these gas stations were in existence prior to the development of the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance. For example, there are 2 gas stations near the intersection of Ford and Canton Center Road that are in a zoning district of C3 that prohibits new gas stations, but does allow for the redevelopment of existing stations. The third criteria is the feasibility of existing future land use, of the existing future land use classification and zoning regulations for site development. If the 4.29 acre parcel were to be developed according to the current future land use density of 3 dwelling units per acre, it's possible that up to 12 dwelling units could be constructed on the site. There are nearby properties that have been developed for single-family residential use under the existing future land use class and the zoning regulations, which include the adjacent parcel to the south. The parcel at 1695 Beck Road. If you've been in the area recently, the house is currently under construction. It's a very large house just south of the subject site. So that does indicate that there is demand for residential development in the area, and it can be developed under the existing zoning and the existing future land use classes. The fourth criteria is whether the evaluation is local or regional in scope. As we previously noted, the nearest site classified as general commercial on the future land use map is on Ford Road east of Lilly, which is about 2.5 miles away. Therefore, to consider general commercial on this site would require a much broader and regional evaluation of the commercial market and demand in the western part of the township, which would include public participation from the region's residents. That type of evaluation is far beyond the scope of a future land use map amendment application. Also, as previously stated, there are 2 gas stations near the intersection of Ford and Canton Center that are in the C3 district. Finally, it's worth noting that automobile filling stations are permitted uses in the Cherry Hill Village Overlay District, which is only about a mile away. The comprehensive plan envisions much of the commercial demand in the western part of the township being serviced in Cherry Hill Village. In fact, the uptown plan development in the Cherry Hill Village Overlay District, which was last amended in 2018, includes an area at the southwest corner of Denton Road and Uptown Avenue for a future gas station. Therefore, the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance already allow for limited development of gas stations in the northwestern part of the township, and any proposal to allow for commercial development where it is not currently planned would require a regional evaluation of the comprehensive plan and its associated policies. The fifth and final item that we look at is the impact on utilities, roads, and other infrastructure. For the sewer, the township sewer master plan is based on the comprehensive plan and vice versa. And goal 2 of the comprehensive plan and its associated objectives and policies requires the provision for adequate public utilities. This is something on the site that would largely be unknown if it were converted to a commercial use, just because commercial uses have different requirements for levels of sewer and water service. Therefore, this would have to be evaluated by the engineering services. But beyond that, classifying this site as general commercial would set a precedent for other nearby properties to also seek commercial future land use classifications, which could undermine the long-term strategy for managing the impact of the sewer system. And finally, for the traffic impact, we have seen at least one traffic impact study recently in the area that indicates that the level of service at the intersection of Ford and Beck Road are either failing or approaching capacity during the peak hours of the AM and PM. A general commercial future land use class would likely result in additional vehicle trips as well as in-out, right-left turning movements during those peak hours than the current future land use map class for the subject site. Therefore, we do not recommend proceeding with the proposed future land use map amendment application based on the existing traffic levels at the adjacent intersection and the traffic impact of a general commercial development. Therefore, in summary, our conclusion is that based on the above criteria, the future land use map amendment application as a whole is inconsistent with the surrounding areas and the policies of the comprehensive plan. Additionally, there's no evidence to indicate that the subject parcel cannot be feasibly used under the provision of the current future land use map of the comprehensive plan. And finally, the proposed application would require a regional review of the future land use map and would require further study of the impact on the sewer system and traffic levels of service, all of which are well beyond the scope of the application. Therefore, our recommendation is denial of the application to prepare an amendment to the comprehensive plan future land use map to reclassify the subject parcel from medium-low density residential to general commercial as proposed on the application for the reasons stated in our analysis. That concludes our report, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Patrick. From the commission, I know that Patrick put a lot of stuff out there on the table. What are the thoughts on this property in terms of the future? Anything?
This is not a public hearing, right?
No, it's not a public hearing.
For the reasons he stated, I think leaving it zoned as it is appropriate.
Is your mic
Well,
on?
Oh, I probably didn't talk. I think for the reasons that Patrick noted, I think leaving the parcel zoned as it is appropriate. I wouldn't change it.
Okay,
I agree.
It's rural residential right now, right? And
Agreed.
and the master plan calls for medium-low density residential, and there's thoughts that it could be something other than that. I am vehemently against general commercial there. Quite honestly, I could see maybe office, but what do you think there?
I also agree, and I live near that intersection, and it is a very busy intersection, and the last thing we need is any more traffic going right there. And I thought you brought up a lot of great points, Patrick. I appreciate how extensive it was.
Yes, very, very extensive. Anything further?
You
Well,
want a motion?
If, it's up to you.
I move to deny the request to prepare an amendment to the comprehensive plan future land use map to reclassify parcel number 71065990007 from medium-low density residential, 3 dwelling units per acre, to general commercial for the reasons stated in the above analysis.
Support.
All right, we got a motion by Commissioner Engel and support by Commissioner Zuber. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any further discussion on that motion?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if anyone in the audience is representing the applicant. I don't know if there were any questions before taking a
Oh,
vote.
well, okay, it's not a public hearing, but yeah, we'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to come up to the mic.
Hi,
Hello,
I'm actually Mary Hauk.
good evening.
Hi there. I am the owner of the property at Ford and Beck. I don't know if any of you were familiar. I had the farm market there for 26 years,
Right.
farming 5 generations in Canton. Until it wasn't very conducive anymore. Canton isn't too farm-friendly, it wasn't anymore, so we had to migrate out to a more rural area. We had a lot of good years there, so as far as being very familiar with Canton, as to the changes that have gone on, I am that. I saw day in and day out how that corner was, and I've seen it grow from dirt road to what it is now. Canton Township, in fact, took 3/4 of an acre along Beck Road of my property for the sewer and the water. And that's how they came along there. And I did not buck the system at that point either. I allowed them to come along there and do what they needed to do. That property, in no way, I kind of chuckle because I hear y'all talk about keeping the west side of Canton rural, and I think your definition and my definition of rural are very different. You have very high-density developments. There's, aside from your open spaces that are in your subdivision areas, there is no more rural Canton left. In fact, that's the reason why we kind of we had to go somewhere else. So as far as rural, I don't see the same as what you guys are saying. And as far as putting houses on that property, on that corner, I've had a commercial, the township and I went back and forth for many years because I was agriculture, but they called me commercial. And every time I went in front of them for a sign or a banner or whatever it was, I was in court quite a bit, they called me commercial. So I had a commercial business there, as they put it, for 26 years. And as far as the traffic, I've seen those changes as well. As what we were proposing to go on here, I didn't feel was going to add more traffic, but I think it was going to eliminate the congestion that is all along the Ford Road, Canton Center, down to Haggerty area. There's so much development now to the west side of Canton that no one's taking care of it. In fact, for all the years that I've been, most of the people that were there used to ask me all the time, if you would just have gas and a few other things here, I wouldn't have to go uptown as much, because they didn't want to go up Ford Road, Canton Center area, because it is very congested. And it gets to be very dangerous. And I think the traffic that would be at this development would be people going back and forth in the neighborhood on their way home from work, stopping to pick something up, getting their gas and heading home, and not having to head into Canton, downtown Canton, and deal with that traffic and deal with that headache. The west side of Canton Center is been developed almost to its max, and it's all been developed with houses, apartments, and condos. So the population has definitely grown out that way, and there is nothing there that is servicing them. And Ford Road is a main thoroughfare that goes from M14 all the way to Detroit. And from 14, we have a lot of traffic. We were the first thing that anybody saw coming from 14 to Michigan Avenue, or from 14, I should say, over by Beck Road, or 14 out by Ford Road, that way. And I would say we'd have a half a dozen people every day stopping there asking, where's the nearest gas station? So it is a main interstate. M153 is a main interstate. It's a main thoroughfare interstate road. So it's, you know, I don't think it's too far-fetched to believe that putting something there to accommodate the neighborhood. It's not like people are going to get off the highway and travel there as additional traffic. It would be there to service the west side of Canton and the people that are there. They're hoping to incorporate the farm-to-table benefits as well as a convenience store and gas station, and eventually for the electric cars, charging stations as well. So I was hoping to at least have the ability and open-mindedness to maybe look at something different here. That corner there, I can't see anyone wanting to live there. I don't know if you would, right there on that intersection. I don't think anybody would want to live on that intersection. It's not an intersection to raise a family. It's not an intersection, I don't think, to be in, and listening to the traffic all day and all night there. So that's my 2 cents. I was hoping to, maybe think of different avenues we could travel. But the Hop family is another family that is Michigan, born and raised here, that has been building these convenience stores / adding pumps as well for many years. And they've put themselves into many different towns that weren't very welcoming at the time, but they are ingrained in those towns now. And as I still am to a point, but I was hoping we'd do something different, but I guess we'll have to see where to go from here.
Thank you very much for that. That's a lot of eye-opening comments there, and it brings to mind a question to Patrick. This obviously is going to deserve further study, further consideration. Those are some excellent points in terms of access for the community. However, we've brought up some points here that oppose that in some very prudent ways as well. So I don't think we can come to a resolution tonight. Now, we do have a motion on the floor, and I don't know what we do with that, because that, under Robert's rules, is
Another guy wants to
official.
talk, I think.
Okay. Do you have some further comment?
Yeah, if I could,
Sure.
just briefly. My name is Craig Hopp, and I'm the president of J&H Oil Company and Hopp Family. And I'll give you just a little outsider perspective. Our home base is in Wyoming, Michigan, and I had reason to come out here because my son-in-law and daughter bought a condo here in Canton. After graduating from U of M, they settled down here, and he's going to school and so forth. And as any parent would do before they bought a house here or a condo, I drove the whole grid around this area. And first, I have to commend you for fitting so many households in an area like this and still having it look nice. And looking tonight, you have even more coming. But also, as a businessman, as I went around and I looked at all the corners, in my 36 years in industry, I've found very few corners that are as appealing for a convenience center as Beacon Ford. And it has a lot of traffic, but not too much traffic. It's an intersection that you just find so rarely for our industry. When I say our industry, we build community centers that cater to the local area. I was personally born and raised on a dairy farm, so I know what rural is. That intersection with the traffic it has is certainly not rural to me, but I understand it's failing. And in our cover letter, we said we would participate in a fix for that intersection. Like Mary indicated, it's gas today, maybe it's electric vehicles tomorrow. But we would be long-haul community partners. We'd want to work into the neighborhood and have a farm market there, with a convenience store, an ice cream parlor with some outside seating. It's conceptual at this point, but that's what we're looking to do there. So thank you for your consideration, and well done on the growth of your community.
Okay, thank you for your comments on that.
Thank you.
All right, getting back to my question is, does the board feel like is this worthy of further look going forward, or just continue with the denial and go from there? I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Speak up.
Well, I think something at some point has to be done with that corner. You know, what that is, at this time, I don't know.
Well, we know it can't stay rural residential. We know that. So.
Well, it is rural
Yeah,
residential.
but it's not going to be anything if it stays rural residential.
That's correct.
And the
But
question is.
as Patrick just detailed,
Right.
changing it to commercial is quite a cumbersome process, would you say?
There would be a number of things to consider, not the least of which is that if this corner were to be considered, what other corners could potentially be considered? And
Right.
what other areas of that part of the township? And one of the reasons for the recommendation of denial at this time is basically because it really opens up a lot of areas in the western part of the township that we're not prepared to review at this time based on the narrow scope of the application, where we're looking at other traffic, other corners, similarly situated sites that have a residential classification. That may be a commercial study that takes place within the next couple of years when the master plan is reviewed at that point, and we look at commercial in the western part of the township and the northwestern part of the township to see if there's any cause to change any of the policies. That is something that can be studied as part of a comprehensive update, where we not only look at the commercial market, but we also take into account some of the public participation of people that live in the area and around the area to see what their thoughts are. And to do a study like that, it really requires a regional evaluation, a more holistic approach to the comprehensive plan as a whole and that part of the township that's far beyond the scope of what a future land use amendment application would be.
So to move that along, it would take a public hearing, at least one public hearing, in order to change that in the master use plan, correct?
At the very least, change to the future land use map is a public hearing, but to get into something that is much different in the area, like commercial land uses in this part of the township, I believe an effort like that would require a lot more public participation than just the state mandated public hearing. I think it would require some surveys, probably some open houses, and some face-to-face meetings with a lot of the area residents just to gauge their thoughts and their opinions on commercial in the area. And I think some kind of a public participation effort like that, it would yield a better plan. But I also think, again, that doing something like that is something that's reserved for your 5-year update or your periodic update where you look at everything and not necessarily looking at just one site on a future land use map amendment application.
Yeah, I agree with you, Patrick. I love the idea. I'm sure there's a big need with all the homes that are over there now of, I just want to quickly walk in and grab a gallon of milk, loaf of bread, get in and out. But to me, it just doesn't follow the master plan, and I think when the master plan is looked at again, I think there could be some need for this over there on the west side. But for me, it just doesn't follow the current master plan.
So basically, you're saying this is ahead of its time?
Yeah.
Excuse me, can I make a comment?
You sure can.
My name is Joe Cretter. I am the realtor for Mary Hope, and I'm working on this. This is this is 2 years, we've looked at this and worked on different things. And in those 2 years, and initially going ahead and starting to work with Mary, I look around what surrounds that. And if you go directly next door, there's a 5-acre parcel that runs more north and south. They've tried to sell that. They haven't sold it.
There's an older home that's next to that. If you go to the east, there's a home on the corner, then there's 4 or 5 parcels that have been on for sale for years that haven't moved. And certainly, you know, as a homeowner, and if you look at the house that Patrick mentioned to the south, yes, it's a sizable home, but it's a considerable distance from the corner, and it's set back, and there's also, you know, trees and that to separate the two. So when I go ahead from the real estate side of things and look at it just from a business perspective, nothing's moved there. It's been for sale. So if somebody wanted, a developer wanted to come in and do that, you have 5 acres right next door to Mary that's not even on the corner, that hasn't moved. They haven't gone after either of the 2 houses on that corner, and all the real estate to the east on the south side of Ford Road hasn't moved either. And it's not outrageously priced. So the comment that I'm making from a real estate perspective, in looking at that, it might be what it's zoned for, but with the demand for housing of what it is right now, it's not, you know, it's not moving. And so there's got to be a reason for it. And I think, you know, what they touched upon, and Mary and Greg's, you know, comments is that this is, you know, where they see, and yeah, it might be somewhat forward thinking, but how often you have, you know, people who have been actively ingrained in a community, ran actually a market there, ran a Christmas business there, and now all of a sudden, you know, she's been part of this, you know, ingrained in the Canton community, and, you know, there isn't, you know, she came across, you know, Craig, or he came to us and, you know, wanted to go ahead and move forward. It's a family-oriented business, so it's not like you're getting 7-Eleven. You know, it's a very different feel. He wants to incorporate Mary's Farm Stand into his market. So it's a completely different look than if you were getting one of these nationwide, you know, gas station / bodega convenience store trends. This is something that's totally different, that's ingrained. People who want to be involved in a community, people who want to go ahead and provide a service. So that's just my comment, is that I think that the real estate market has spoken. Those properties haven't moved.
I do appreciate your vantage point on that. Has it been considered to put those 2 properties together? Because as a larger parcel, there is a small development residential opportunity that way. And I think that's what the township originally intended with the master plan, was by keeping that residential, it makes the development community think, well, okay, how can we put that together in order to make that class of housing work in there?
Well, we looked at it before. Actually, the people who own that particular property are former real estate people. So that's not, you know, the route that it's going, although they do need each other. And when we were looking at putting, you know, our initial thought was a Montessori school, and then we wanted a drive-through with coffee, and there were office and doctor's offices and those type of things. You know, those discussions were had with them, you know, to go ahead and do that. But it wasn't, you know, a housing type of situation. And being a real estate broker, you know, that's not a route that he's gone. And we've looked at everything, you know, on the other side, you know, going east. And that's just, I appreciate your idea. Your idea also is not, you know, I'll call it the reality. I mean, being somebody who lived in Ann Arbor and just somebody who just came up from Florida, and I'm watching where 30 lots go on sale and they're sold in an hour, and they're all, you know, crazy expensive homes. And here we have property that's sitting there. There's no property in Ann Arbor. If I took vacant parcels, I can pull it up. There's 5 inside the loop that are out there. And I go, Canton's very, very close, and I look at it, that property is not moving.
Right, I understand. And it is not our obligation to change zoning on the basis of what is in style or what is moving as opposed to what is a good fit for the community. And I hope you understand that. We do have a motion on the floor. I think what we need to do is, we do need to proceed with what's ahead of us. What do you think about this?
Greg, I'm ready to vote.
I am too.
Yeah, there's been a motion and second, so I
Yeah.
guess you got to vote.
All right. Commissioner Zuber, would you call the vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ocon?
Yes.
Commissioner Engel?
Yes.
Commissioner Perkins?
Yes.
Commissioner Eggenberger?
Yes.
Commissioner Zuber, yes, and Chairman Green.
That's a yes. Please understand that this denial is not because we hate the property or we hate you or anything else about it. It's just that, as Patrick has alluded to, the township had a design for the western part of the township, and to this point, we haven't seen fit to deviate from that in terms of corner uses, and so that's where we're at right now. I would pursue this with the trustees in order to maybe speed up the process of taking the look at this, because it can suit a need for the community. And but as of tonight, we can't help that. So we do thank you for your participation, and I do hope that you will continue to pursue the land use on that property. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Could you speak to the mic?
You said go to the board?
That's
the next,
I would say go to the board, because they're the ones, we're an advisory body to the board, and what we are going to say is, at this point, we will deny an amendment to the land use for that property.
okay.
It would be up to you to go to the board and say, I know the planning commission did this, but we're going to appeal to you as another body, and keep going at it. Don't give up.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Okay, we have some work for staff,
And it probably does need to be changed.
which I know they want to have, right, Patrick? All right, we've got new business staff referral. Metro Opportunities, property located on Michigan Avenue between Denton and Beck Road, Cherry Hill Preserve Condominiums, Monarch Grove Canton, Hampton Manor of Canton. All of that's got to be sent to staff for their review and to prepare for us. Do I hear a motion to do such a thing?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then we've got a, Patrick, what are you trying to do to us? December 7th.
Yeah, I'm not going to be
What a-
here
what a
December.
fitting
I've
date.
decided.
What a fitting date that is, December
That's my
7th.
last meeting.
Yeah, it's,
Okay, we set a public hearing for December 7th, Metro Opportunities, two projects, right? Cherry Hill Preserve Condominiums, Monarch Grove Canton, and Hampton Manor of Canton. Do I hear a motion to set the public hearing for those projects to December 7th?
What happens if we don't?
If you don't set it?
So
Just
moved.
said like maybe 2 or 3.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion and support to set that public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And do we have anything else? Anything from the
No, Craig,
commission?
come on, motion to close the meeting.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
wait a
yeah,
minute.
I make
Do we have
motion to
anything- Do
adjourn.
we have anything from staff?
No, you don't. Motion to adjourn.
I think I've given you enough.
Support.
Yeah, okay. All right, all in favor of adjourning? Aye?
Aye.
Any
What,
opposed?
you can't make them.